If I was a betting man, I would bet that I have spent more time thinking about knees than any other person over the last few years. That probably sounds weird. Why are you thinking about knees? But it's because of this reason. I had 6 major knee injuries over 5 years, keeping me in chronic knee pain. It kept me from playing the sport that I love. These 3 principles that I will outline in this video today would have dramatically increased the likelihood that I got to the point where I am now, being able to jump off crossbars, being able to play the sport I love, having healthier knees, ankles and hips than I ever have before, being more athletic than ever before. They're broken down into 3 different categories. This may be one of the most beneficial videos that you could watch of mine. So we have one category being the mental side of stuff, we have the second category being nutrition, recovery side of stuff, and then the third category being actual training side of stuff. And so I will walk you through the principle and then exactly what I did in that principle, and so you can take away stuff from this. So first thing is the mental. Let me ask you this. Have you ever sat down with a pen, with a piece of paper, no distractions, no music, no phone, no laptop, no nothing, and actually thought about your why, your reason behind actually wanting to build your knee ability to a certain level? Because everything stems from your meaning. What meaning you hold to something then results in outward action. If we look at me, for example, the reason why I wanted to get back to football, why I wanted to sort out my knees, had different layers to it. So I took my current situation, right? This is where we first need to find. We need to find exactly what we're dealing with. And not just surface level, oh, my knee hurts, I can't play football, this kind of stuff. Really, what is this doing to me? What is my current situation? What is my knee holding me back from doing? What emotions am I feeling because of it? What am I missing out on in life because of my knee? How does that make me feel? What impact is that having on my relationships, my ability to make money, my enjoyment of life, my mental health, all of these things, right? We need to find our honest current situation. So this is where we are right now. From there, in life, you can either move towards one of 2 things. A positive outcome or a negative outcome. There's no neutrality. You're either going in one direction or the other, and every day you choose to make a step towards one. And so these are the 2 other things that we need to really flush out. We need to flush out our perfect aim, our heaven, our why. What would happen? What would be the best case scenario that could happen to me in this? So is it playing with your kids again? Is it playing football? Is it being able to do this? And again, not just on the surface level, but levels deeper. The depth of your questions will lead to the depth of your answers. And so if you ask yourself a shallow question, what do you want to be able to do? Well, I want to be able to play football, I want to be able to do this. That will be a shallow answer. Then, the next question, what impact would that have on me personally? Or, what's important to me about getting back to football? That's probably the next one. Then it's, what impact would that have on this area of my life, this area of my life, this area of my life, this area of my life? And you have to really paint out your heaven. What could my potential be? If I got my knee to the point where I could play football, what does that mean for my relationships? Well, it means I can go out and play with my friends more often. It means that instead of scrolling and playing video games inside, I can go out with my friends in the evening in the summer weather and play some football. It means I don't have to say no to plans, to concerts, to playing with my kids, to playing with my nephews. What impact does that have on that bond between you two? Okay, cool, we're going to have a stronger bond with my friends, which will then relay on better mental health for me, better mental health for them, all around goodness, right? And so you want to think about all of these avenues. You want to tie as many things as possible in this dream scenario to your mind, your why, because that will be a driver. But you don't just want to have a heaven, right? That's not how God created the world. You want to have a hell as well. What is the consequence of me not doing anything? Because it's not just going to be neutral, right? Think about your last 6 to 12 months. You've either been moving in a more positive direction or you've been moving in a more negative direction. And obviously you go up, down, up, down, up, down. That's how life happens. But over a long period of time, you can see you're either going up towards where you want to be or down away from where you want to be. In my 5 years of chronic pain, it was a lot of up, downs, up, downs, up, downs, but overall it was a downward trajectory of my knee ability over a long period of time. I just didn't understand it because 5 years after, I was then at the point where my knee was swelling up after every day at work. I used to work at Amazon, and my knee would swell up every day. I couldn't do any of the stuff I wanted to in the gym. My screws were coming out of my knee. I had to say no to plans. I had to say no to going out. I had to say no to all of these kind of things, and it progressively got to this state. It started off as just a knee surgery I should have been able to get back to after 6 months if I had that why, if I had that vision, as well as the right training, nutrition, all that kind of stuff. But this why is the most important thing. If I would have really thought about, no, why do I want to get back to this thing? Why am I doing this? Then that would have driven me to actually take the action. So the consequence, we do need to write our hell as well. Okay, what happens if I don't do the right training? What happens if I don't start to take the action on my nutrition? What happens if I don't start to take the action on educating myself towards the place where I want to be. Possibly the fact of, okay, well, my knee stays in the same position. Let's just say that. Well, you're still not going to be able to play football. If you're out of football for a long period of time, what's that going to do to your social life? What's that going to do to your mental health? What's that going to do to you as a person? Where's that going to lead? What impact, etc., etc., etc. And so you want to take all of these routes. A good way to look at it is wealth, health, and relationships. That's like the big three pillars. And then inside those you have loads of things. My relationships with my girlfriends, my relationships with myself, my relationships with God, my relationships with my family, my relationships all around, right? And so you have each factor there. How does this affect my work? Am I in pain at work? Does that then lead to me not liking my job? Does that then lead to me doing this? Health. Okay, how does this impact my mental health? How does this impact my bodily health? Do I, because I'm more stressed, eat more sugar, and then that's going to lead to like an earlier case of death for me, less life in me because I'm so stressed about my knee all the time, which is totally fine. It happened to me, right? Like I got fat because of my knee. So you have to think about all these things. You have to have your current situation, you have to have your heaven, and you have to have your hell. And this is going to produce action for yourself. So one step from this is to go away and be able to write down this stuff. Write down your current situation, write down your heaven, write down your hell, flush it out completely, ask yourself the deep questions and actually understand what you are going through. Because if you don't understand it, if you don't acknowledge it, you can't move towards where you want to go. It doesn't mean you're hopeless. If you look at all these things and you think, okay, this is so negative, it does not mean you're hopeless. You can make a choice every day to go towards a more positive thing. And all those positive steps will add up eventually to this really positive life, right? I now have, from the point where I was depressed, wanting to kill myself because of how bad my knee was, I now have 100,000 followers. I now have a business that helps people to be able to overcome the pain and suffering that I had to endure. My physique is in a way better position. Me personally, the way that I relate to my family, to my friends, to God, to all of this stuff was enhanced by sorting out my knee. Right, so I was in this really low position and I got to this high position which I'm in now, and there's still ups and downs every day. That's how life goes, but I am way more happy. My life is way more enjoyable than it was at the point when I had all these knee issues. And one of the main reasons is because I started to have a why. I started to take control of my life. Number 2, the recovery, the body comp, the nutrition side of stuff. The number 1 principle for this is the body composition. Body composition means how much functional mass do you have, how much muscle versus how much body fat. Probably heard about body fat percentages. Okay, what would you say you are? Maybe 20%, maybe 30%, maybe some of you are down in the 10s. We want to be, as men, between 10 and 15% body fat. Women can be a little bit higher. Well, at least this is my goal. This is when I feel best. Some people can be leaner, some people can be a little bit extra, but this is where I feel best. And the second thing is not just where you feel best, but also the less functional mass you have in the body and the more fat, the more stress is going on your knees. The aim of the game with knee health is relative strength. How much strength do your knees, your muscles, your tissues have around your knee, your hips, your ankles have compared to your body weight? And so our lifts are in percentages, right? Okay, can you do 50% of your body weight for this many reps? Right, that's how we track it, not can you do 100 kilos, right? Because a bench press for me that's 62 kg, it's going to look very different to a bench press that's 100 kg, right? So if I can't do 100 kg, but they can do 100 kg, they would think, okay, this guy has better strength than me. But it's like, okay, well, that's not the goal. The goal is relative strength. So the overarching principle that's the most important, in my opinion, what was the most important for my knee, was this body composition piece. And then we have 3 ways of breaking this down inside of it. So obviously with body composition, the main factor is that our calorie intake is less than our calorie expenditure. And so the number 1 thing we need to do is go in a bit of a calorie deficit if we are not at the body composition we would like. So for me personally, I look at anywhere between a 200 and a 500 calorie deficit when I do look to get into these phases. So how we find our maintenance, how I find my maintenance is a few ways. You can either look online at a calorie maintenance calculator. You can literally search it up. You can be able to put in your height, your weight, all that kind of stuff, and it will spit out a thing. Okay, this is what we think your maintenance calories are. Then we need to track our calories. We need to make sure, okay, we know exactly what we're eating and exactly what we're expending in a day, but mainly what we're eating, and then we need to weigh ourselves. Every morning I have a habit of going into my bathroom and weighing myself. That then shows me, okay, am I gaining weight or am I losing weight? Do it over a week. If on a week the average is a certain amount, say try and eat at your maintenance. Say try and eat at 2,500 calories, for example. Say I ate at 2,500 calories every day for 7 days. I would then look at the scale across the week. If the body weight stayed the same over an average, obviously some days it can fluctuate, etc, etc, but on average, if it stayed around the same, that means that is around my maintenance. And so I want to go to 2200, maybe 2000 calories, depending on how harsh I want to go in my calorie deficit. Other ways we can be able to affect this is calories in is really, really important, but then calories expended. And so with our knee, it's maybe a bit hard to do cardio, but can we find something that is super easy to do cardio wise to be able to get our calorie expenditure up? Is it that walking is fine for our knee and we can do an extra few thousand steps a day? Is it that biking feels good on our knee and we can do extra 5-10 minutes? Is it that we can literally not use our lower body and do stuff like juggling, or maybe do stuff like rope flow, which includes our upper body, and that's going to burn some cardio? Maybe it's sled, which can start to help us actually get a knee pump at the same time as losing weight. And so we have calorie intake, we have calorie expenditure there. Third thing then that I did is to look at the actual internals. So the calories are just an externals. We know the Twinkie diet, we know that, okay, if you eat below your maintenance, you are going to lose weight, whether you eat Twinkies, whether you eat this. However, your internal health is not going to be good, and so we really need to focus on that, and that affects our hormones, and then that affects our body composition anyway over the long term. It also affects how we feel and how much energy we have to do the sessions, and so over a long period of time, it would allow us to actually burn more calories and stay in a better body composition. And so one of the main things I did was try to limit ultra-processed foods as much as possible. And you can go 80-20, you can go whatever you can stick to, but limiting ultra-processed foods, not just processed foods, we need to know ultra-processed foods, is going to be one of the most important things, especially in diets nowadays. So that's the second principle, is body composition. Third principle then is the training side of stuff. And for this, it's the understanding of demand versus ability with structural balance. That is a big caveat with structural balance. And so demand versus ability is the fact of, if we have had pain, injury, any of this kind of stuff, it's not because we've done the exact right amount which our tissue can handle. It's usually either because we've put a pressure on the knee too much to what we can handle, and this is either because we haven't prepared the knee enough in the fact of we've done too little, or the stimulus that we're putting on our knee is just too much, and so the demand that we can handle is just not as much as the ability. But this doesn't just mean ability in the knee as well, right? Because the hip can affect the knee, the ankle can affect the knee, and so we have to look at this in a structural balanced way. And so pressure is not bad. If someone's ever told you don't put your knee over your toe, it's because there was a study that came out and said, okay, putting your knees over your toe puts more pressure on the knee. That is not bad, as long as it is a pressure that we can handle and adapt to. And so we need to train each area of our body, our ankles, our knees, and our hips, in balance, in increasing capacities in strength, mobility, and elasticity. We have loads of resources out there for being able to find exercise, all this kind of stuff. The main things that we can look at, for example, the triple extension is like a massively term thing. So it's like, hey, don't just focus on triple extension. How about we focus on triple flexion as well, right? How about our feet, our ankles, our knees, our hips? We just want to look at each joint. Look, okay, what does the joint do? Well, we have the knee, it extends and it also flexes. Okay, cool. So I want to train my full range of motion with my knee extending and also flexing, right? We don't want to train one without the other. And we don't want to train a limited range of motion on its own. A limited range of motion is fine as long as that is balanced out with some full range of motion. And then, okay, is our mobility, which is using full range of motion, which is all this kind of stuff, just as good as our strength? Okay, how's our ankle mobility? How is that affecting our knee? And so this is the third principle, and it's the training side of stuff, is demand versus ability with structural balance. And you can go away and research this and look into all of this kind of different stuff, but I just wanted to go over 3 big principles in which we can actually start to look at and start to use that will actually be big needle movers. And so the first one was the why. Okay, if we have a big enough why, we will find the way to get there. That is just how it is. And that means your heaven and your hell, and knowing where you are in terms of that and where you want to then take steps towards. Second, then, the nutrition side of stuff is the body composition. Okay, can we get to a healthy body composition between 10 and 20%? Hopefully on that lower ends if we're met. And then the third piece for the training, structural balance. Do we understand demand versus ability and structural balance? If we do understand these 3 things, it is going to go a very, very long way for us. I hope this video helps. If you do want even more actionable stuff, if you have been watching our videos, if you've been listening to our education, if you've been seeing our results, and you actually want to take the step towards getting healthier knees, getting a healthier body that can protect you against future injuries, please look at the top link in the description. It breaks down a bit about what we do, and you can apply if it makes sense for your situation. If it doesn't, I hope this content serves you in the right way.